All right, let's dive into an absolutely massive story today. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to trace over 1,300 years of incredibly rich history. We are going to see how the life of a single, humble merchant sparked the epic rise and the eventual fall of a massive global superpower. I am so excited to take you through this because the way this whole history unfolds is just absolutely fascinating.
To make sense of this epic timeline, which stretches all the way from 570 CE to 1924, we're going to follow a really clear chronological roadmap. We'll start with the origins of Islam, move through the struggle and flight, check out the rise of the Caliphates, explore the breathtaking Islamic Golden Age, and then wrap up with the final empire. Okay, let's jump right in.
So, our first era looks at the origins of Islam, and this foundational moment centers entirely on Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He was born in Mecca back in 570 CE, and his early life, well, it definitely wasn't easy. He was orphaned when he was very young and was raised by his uncle, Abu Talib. He actually started out working as a shepherd, but as he grew up, he eventually became a highly respected merchant. Now imagine the sheer isolation of being alone in a cave up on Mount Hira. In 610 CE, when the prophet was 40 years old, he was visited by the angel Jibreel, or Gabriel, right there in that cave. It was in this exact quiet moment that Allah's message was first revealed to him. God instructed him to share his message with the world. And these profound revelations didn't just happen overnight. They actually continued over the next 23 years of his life. Together, all of these revelations formed the holy book, the Quran. Through this entire process, Muslims believe that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was established as the final prophet of Allah. But this growing movement led directly into our next era, the struggle and flight. You see, the prophet started attracting followers, and he taught them to worship only one God and to completely abandon their idols. But as you can probably guess, this message was incredibly disruptive. Powerful members of the Meccan community felt deeply threatened because it went against literally everything they believed in, so they ordered him to stop. Because of that resistance, the early Muslims went through a tremendously hard time. Facing just immense hardship, the prophet asked his followers to slowly and secretly travel to Medina, which was called Yathrib back then. Shortly after, the prophet himself fled as well. This escape is an event called the Hijra, and it's actually such a massive deal that it officially marks the very beginning of the Islamic calendar. Just pause and think for a second. How terrifying must it have been for those early Muslims to leave their homes and everything they knew behind in secret? But their struggles were far from over. I want you to think about the number 300. In 624 CE, we had a total make-or-break moment for the very survival of Islam. During the Battle of Badr, an army of just about 300 Muslims, led by the Prophet, faced off against roughly 1,000 soldiers from the powerful Quraysh tribe of Mecca. Talk about an underdog story, right? But against all odds, that tiny Muslim army miraculously won the battle. So how exactly did they pull off a victory like that? Well, Muslims believe that Allah performed several miracles during the battle to help this much smaller army win. These miracles included actually making the Quraysh army appear smaller than it really was and sending down angels to aid the Muslims in the fight. This historic battle happened during the month of Ramadan, and it's an event explicitly mentioned in the Quran itself. And this brings us to a huge triumphant turning point. In 630 CE, the Muslims finally returned to Mecca, and the powerful Quraysh tribe peacefully surrendered. When they got back, the idols and statues were completely cleared out, and the Kaaba, which is the most sacred site in Islam, was rededicated solely for the worship of Allah. This peaceful but powerful return caused so many more people to accept Islam and recognize Muhammad, peace be upon him, as a prophet. That peaceful expansion ultimately set the stage for our third era, the rise of the Caliphates. After the prophet passed away, a pretty major disagreement arose over who should lead the Muslim people next. This disagreement is actually what divided the Muslim community into the two main branches we know today, Sunni Muslims and Shia Muslims. They also set up a brand new system of government known as a caliphate, which basically united the leader, the followers, and their lands into one massive empire. Under the first four Sunni caliphs, the empire evolved incredibly fast. First up was Abu Bakr, who ruled for 2 years. Then you've got Umar, who massively expanded the empire, conquering lands in historic Palestine, Syria, Egypt, and Iraq. Next came Uthman, who took on the monumental job of standardizing one written form of the Quran. And finally, Ali became caliph, ruling until he was defeated in battle by Muawiyah, who then went on to kick off the Umayyad dynasty. Now, all this vast territorial expansion ushered in a breathtaking new era, the Islamic Golden Age. This was a period of unbelievable prosperity, running from the 9th right up to the 14th century. The empire was huge now. It spread across the Middle East, North Africa, Central Asia, and even into southern Europe. In 762 CE, the Abbasid Caliph al-Mansur founded the magnificent city of Baghdad. Originally named Madinatul Salam, this city became the absolute beating heart of the Islamic Empire. It was a vibrant, bustling capital totally dedicated to education, medicine, trade, and philosophy. And Baghdad was famously home to the legendary House of Wisdom. Picture this, a massive, ever-expanding library and educational center packed with works from all over the world. Scholars would literally travel from far and wide just to learn, debate, and drive huge advancements across art, philosophy, agriculture, science, literature, astronomy, and technology. It was a real game changer.
I want to just pause here for a second. Why do you think Islam spread so quickly? Take a moment to reflect on how a movement that started with one man in a single cave evolved into this global engine of art and science in such a short amount of time. It's truly astonishing. But sadly, this incredibly vibrant golden age was about to hit a brick wall and suffer a tragic collapse.
In 1258, a devastating Mongol army, led by Genghis Khan's grandson Hulagu, swept in. They absolutely plundered Baghdad. They completely destroyed the legendary House of Wisdom and threw millions of ancient books and manuscripts right into the river. The destruction was so intense that history says the water actually ran black with ink. It's heartbreaking, really. After that devastating blow, Baghdad and the Islamic Empire never truly recovered its former glory. But out of the ashes of that devastation arose our last era, the final empire, the Ottomans. Even though the physical city of Baghdad fell, those brilliant ideas from the Golden Age, they didn't die. They lived on, and they laid the critical groundwork for the last great Islamic state. This was the Ottoman Empire, and it spanned from 1299 all the way up to 1924. Established by Osman Gazi, it originated in Turkey. It actually grew so powerful that in 1517, they officially took control of the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. And from that point on, the reigning sultan of the Ottoman Empire was also considered the caliph of his time. At its absolute peak, the Ottoman Empire was staggering, covering vast parts of Europe, Africa, and Asia. But then came its sudden fall. During World War I, after fighting Germany, they suffered devastating defeats. This massive conflict caused the empire to fall apart entirely, signaling the true and final end of both the Islamic Empire and the Caliphate system itself. So the empire fell and the Caliphate ended. But the ideas survived. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The Ottoman Empire fell, but the ideas of the Golden Age lived on. So how does the preservation of that knowledge continue to influence our modern world today? Think about those ancient books that somehow survived the invasions, the scientific advancements, the math, the astronomy. How much of the world we live in right now was shaped by that incredible 1,300-year journey? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and keep exploring.